So Tim Scott is going under the radar, right? He just kind of slides under the radar. Like we hear a lot of the criticism that comes out of the GOP, whether it be the usual suspects like they Marjorie Taylor Greens and Nancy Maces. They always make headlines for their craziness. Of course, Trump being the president and a few others. But Tim Scott has gone unnoticed, especially after he went so hard in trying to become Trump's VP. He even got engaged or married. That's how desperate he was to become Trump's VP. He tries to champion himself as a guy who went from the cotton to the white to Congress, right? That was his big thing, from cotton to Congress. But he's a Southern guy, so he's one of the, I think he might be the only black Republican, at least black male Republican, at least in this generation, to get elected on a statewide race, at least in Congress. I know, I believe there was an Attorney General, Cameron something, I forgot his name, from Kentucky. He was the state's Attorney General, so that was a statewide race. And I don't know if he got elected to that seat or he was appointed by, I don't know how that works. I don't know if he was elected or appointed, but I know he tried to run for governor and lost to the Democrat incumbent. So Tim Scott is the guy he's multiple times gets reelected to Senate. Now, initially when he first got the Senate seat, I think he was appointed by Governor Nikki Haley, and then he won re-election, so he technically won his seat. So he won a statewide race. But typically, black Republicans don't win statewide races. They'll win local district races, but they usually don't win statewide races. It's very rare if it ever happens. I don't think it has. At least, I think Tim Scott might be the only one. So Tim Scott, right? He just like, he kind of like just, he speaks up about, criminal justice reform and all this other stuff. He tries to champion, then gives Trump all the credit, and he does all this stuff. But Trump did something recently that Tim Scott has been quiet about, pretty much. No backlash. Tim Scott's been quiet. Remember, this is the guy who has so much to say about trying to prove to the world how, it's all great. America is great. It's not racist. And Trump is this great guy and all this stuff. So the Trump administration dismantled the Minority Business Development Agency, a program championed by Senator Tim Scott to support minority-owned businesses. The move involved placing all MBDA staff on administrative leave or redistributing them within the Commerce Department. Now, of course, the MBDA, which dates back to the Nixon era, provided grants, mentorship, and technical assistance to underserved communities. Critics have called out Tim Scott's silence on the matter, highlighting the impact on minority entrepreneurs and stuff like that. So where is Tim Scott? Right? These articles, a bunch of people have covered this story. Black Enterprise, Politico, Atlanta Black Star have all, including a Euroweb website. I guess some site up in Europe. I don't know. But everyone has seemed to cover the story. So it's not like it's a story that went unnoticed. It's very well in the cycle, in the news cycle. And not a peep from Tim Scott. And Tim Scott is the current Senate banking chair. He works with the Commerce Department, so he's the chair. So I wonder if Tim Scott was like offered some position to say, hey, we're gonna elevate you, but this is what we're gonna end up doing. We're gonna end up taking this away, right? That's probably what happened. I mean, not even only just Tim Scott. What about other black Republicans who championed the business model of, you know, nobody else is setting up, but of course Tim Scott's the one who's championed this project. So you would think he would have some type of opinion. But this goes to show that these guys are so afraid to even criticize something or even just have an opinion about something that may not go with the agenda, that they're so scared. And the black Republicans are even more scared because they see the other white Republicans are scared to death to criticize Trump. They can only imagine what would happen if they was to criticize Trump. That's why they won't. They've never criticized. Like I said, the only person I've ever seen, and this is not a person in Congress, this is like a Candace Owens who has her own backlash she gets and stuff like that. She's been the only person of color, or I guess a minority, on that side of the aisle that's in the thick of things. Not people who, like, of course there are black Republicans that are not MAGA that has criticized Trump. I'm talking about people who are in the know inside that space, right? She's the only one that I've seen that she's danced around it, but she's at times said her piece on what she believes if Trump did something right or wrong. She's come out and I don't know if she's saying anything about this, but I've heard her in the past. I remember a couple years back, she questioned Trump on the vaccine thing, which obviously was a popular move. I guess she thought it was, but many of the base jumped on her, oddly, considering that they agreed with her, but I think they took Trump's side more. And also, I think even recently she came out and criticized Trump over something else. I think it was maybe something with Israel. I don't know. But she seemed to have picked her spots when she would criticize Trump, at least out of all the black influencers, Republicans, Congress members. She's been the only minority that has had some form of set of balls. Now, whether she criticizes him on things that you may agree with or not agree with is not really the point. The point is that she at least has been able to do that, or has been willing to do that, even with the risk that could come with it. So I give her a bit of credit for that. But the others, like Tim Scott's, the Byron Donalds, those other ones are Burgess Owens and the other guy, and any of the other black MAGA influencers, whether it be all the popular ones that always post online, they never, it's almost like Trump never does anything wrong. He's like the perfect person, which is totally impossible because nobody's perfect. So when you start off from that baseline, you should be able to criticize. Okay, you may not get invited to the Mar-a-Lago this week, but Trump seems to be a forgiving guy anyway. I mean, how many people J.D. Vance called him Hitler and he made him the VP, right? So it's not like Trump would. I think he probably would respect you more if you showed a pair of balls and say, hey, you know what, this is not right. But I guess no one wants to test that theory out. No one wants to test that out, especially if you're a minority, because you feel like your whole identity, and this is the problem when your whole identity is tied up in MAGA, like everything you got, your whole, and this is for almost, I would say 99.9% of the MAGAs, and especially the black MAGAs, your whole livelihood is tied into MAGA. And many of the white conservatives too, a lot of the popular white conservatives that are online, a lot of the popular white MAGA podcasters, influencers, a lot of their livelihoods is also tied into the identity of MAGA. But the focus here is the black MAGAs. So, and they have zero room for error. I mean, like, unlike some of the white MAGA people, they do have a little bit of wiggle room, right? They could still survive if they was to decide to say anything. But the black MAGAs, they got zero room for error. They even go too far away. They have to make sure, they have to wait and see first. And then they can come in, right? The Hogg twins and the Hodge twins, I think they call all those people, the Cartier family, they all have to wait and see. They cannot give 1 ounce of criticism. And if they even slightly do, then they have to come back and make like 5-10 videos about how bad black people are and how awful the black community is and the culture and blah, blah, blah. They got to keep doing that for like 2 months to get back in the good graces of the white MAGA base, or else, right? That's pretty much a strategy. If you notice, anytime when it's time to criticize the black community or black people, they all make the same type of videos. It's like almost like they all have a script that they've been told. Like someone call them, all right, we need you to jump on this. Forget the facts. Don't know what the facts are, but just jump on it. Make a video. Let people know why you believe that this is bad and the community sucks, right? But not one of them have made a video about the sewer issue that the DOJ cut, right? Or the lawsuit, the settlement about the Cancer Valley, right? All these areas in the black community where people are getting sick, and or any of the federal employees that were laid off. They had nothing to say about none of that. They were quiet. But now they come out when all these cuts are happening. Now they come out and make videos about why black people are terrible, they're bad, so they can almost justify it. Like, yeah, we have to justify this because there's no way that these people will qualify. Look at this community, look at this culture. So they're trying to tie this in. So, because people are like, damn, why are people getting fired? Why are they eliminating qualified minorities in these positions? Why are they doing this? Something's off. But then if you have these black conservatives that come out and make these videos about how awful black culture is and trying to associate the worst of a community to justify denying jobs and firing the best of the community, the people who represent the best part of the black community, that makes almost no sense. But this is their logic because they believe, and when I say they, I mean the white conservatives believe that they're the superior white race, and that if any minority made its way to a position, it's likely because they were forced to be there. And they look at that the same way when they look at black conservatives. They look at black conservatives as tokens, as you are here because we are allowing you to be here. And Nick Fuentes pointed this out when he went off on Jason Whitlock. The mindset is still the same. Regardless if you believe, when you see black conservatives that have been accepted into MAGA, it's because they allow you to be. It's not because you have been a good citizen and you've done great in society and you decided that your views lean more conservative. It's because you have been allowed to enter. So that means everything that your space that you created for your life, whether you start a business or you grew a following because you had conservative views, but they're telling you that you only have this because we allowed you to have this. And that's basically what they say. But you believe that, oh, we're equal, we'll be treated the same. You're not equal. I think, like I said, you may not think Nick Fuentes represents the overall mindset of many conservatives, and he probably don't. But he said the quiet part out loud, right? He said the quiet part out loud, and the same thing that many black people have said for years when describing individuals on the right, black people on the right. You make it because you're allowed to make it. You don't control your own destiny, even though they make you believe you do, but you don't. And we can easily test that theory, because you want to test the theory, criticize Donald Trump, criticize the GOP, anything. Just criticize them. Criticize anything and see what happens. Byron Donalds got lit up like a 4th of July firecracker at fireworks at his town hall. or I don't know if it was his town hall or somewhere in his community, where he was trying. Then he had to try to throw his race involved, which was a mistake. I mean, you don't do that. They do not want to hear you say that. But he's trying to be doing town hall. He's trying to become governor of the state, which I don't think is going to happen. He's not going to become governor. But they lit him up because, like I said, when you are a black conservative, you have no wiggle room to create a lane for yourself. You have to stay on code. You have to stay in lockstep, but in the back. You cannot be the forefront unless they want you to be. And if you are going to be controlled. There's no way you're allowed to come in, oh, I'm a 6'4" black man, blah, blah, blah. No, that shit, they don't care about that. They care about it if you're doing that towards the left. Right? If you're acting that way and you're going after the left and you're saying, the keywords like, oh, they're woke and da, da, da. Yeah, they love you to do that then. But you cannot pull that card against your own constituents who put you there because they will get rid of you. They say, whoa, you're getting too uppity there, buddy. You're getting too uppity there. We don't need you running your mouth to us. We like your attitude, but make sure that attitude is directed towards your people or the left side. Take that to the Democrats. Don't take that to us. So Byron Donalds gets his wake-up call. Right? And so you're seeing this, and I think this is why Tim Scott is afraid to come out and say anything about this situation, because we know why the Trump administration got rid of this, because they look at this as DEI, going back to the Minority Business Development Agency. They view this as DEI. So if Tim Scott comes out and criticizes it, then they're going to say, oh, Tim Scott's for DEI. Boom. That's not good. That won't be good, because DEI has been linked as evil, almost like liberal, right? It's like a woke, DEI, liberal are all curse words in the conservative dictionary, the MAGA dictionary. So if you're linked to that, they even tried to link Byron Donalds. I think briefly someone was saying Byron Donalds was woke. Someone mentioned that because of the way he acted at his little event. They'll spread that around. And once you get painted like that, and this is why you don't really hear anything from the other black conservatives who are MAGA that are elected officials, right? The Burgess Owens, and I think there was another guy, I forgot his name. There's like 2 or 3 other black representatives that are from different districts, and they don't say anything. They don't even touch these topics, because to them that's like a third rail, and they're not even that known, so they know they definitely can't say anything. See, Byron's made a name for himself. He's, he started to get a little traction. Tim Scott obviously is a senator who's been around a bit, so they have a little bit more. If they're not speaking out, if Tim Scott, who's probably the most senior Republican minority as far as like person of color, and if he is quiet on these type of issues, then you're not going to get any pushback. And some of the MAGA people see Tim Scott as a rhino anyway, right? So he's not even really seen as MAGA. So this is why I don't understand why Tim Scott is afraid to talk out, because it's not like Tim Scott is even seen as MAGA anyway. He's never been looked at as MAGA. He was just a guy who kissed ass because he wanted to, he was trying to get a position. But Tim Scott is not really a MAGA guy. He's really looked at more as a rhino to many of the MAGA people. So why is he still afraid to come out? Because he understands that the conservative base beyond MAGA is anti-minority, right? It's not even just MAGA. It's almost the whole agenda of the Republican Party right now is anything that seems to be that goes into the progress of minorities is bad. And yeah, you're here because we let you be here. right? That's the point that you have to get, because it's easy for people to say, well, if that's the case, then how did Tim Scott become senator, or how did Byron Donalds get elected, and blah blah blah. I remember Byron and the other guy bragging about how I don't know why I can't remember the other guy's name, but they were sitting at some kind of town hall thingy, I think last year, and they was bragging about how they got elected in a majority white district, not understanding their own psychology behind that. It's like, yes, they allow you to be, and that's why you have to stay on code, because they let you go up there as a token. Back to what Nick Fuentes said, you are a token, and that's why. Now, you want to prove me wrong? The best way to do that would be to have an agenda or a criticism of the current administration, right? You should be allowed to. I mean, years ago, Republicans used to criticize Bush when, they didn't like stuff. Democrats criticized Obama, Clinton. I mean, politicians get criticized, even from the ones from the same party. You should not be afraid to voice your piece. Hey, I don't agree with that, or I think we should rework that, or at least say, hey, did you try to fight for it? Right? Did you try to negotiate to keep it going? Like, did you even try that? All right? Because, yes, at the end of the day, it's still going to be up to the president what he wants to do. But did you fight? Because as a member of Congress, you're supposed to be working for the people. And all people, not just the people that elected you. Which, of course, you do that too. But tell me why getting rid of this, if this doesn't hurt the people in your district, then you should be able to say, hey, I think this was a good program and we should continue it. And explain why. Maybe you can convince them, maybe you don't. I don't know. But at least if you had a fight and you said you tried, we can say, okay. But we know why that doesn't happen, because if it gets out that you tried, then the conversation becomes even wider. Like, oh, it's pretty clear that there's no agenda for black people in the Republican Party. Right? That would be the message. And they can't have that, because then you really got to explain how come you're still supporting a party that clearly doesn't care about you or see you as second class. And that's what's going on. There is a push to force these type of programs out, and that's what you're gonna get. Unfortunately, that's the way it is. And Tim Scott needs to be called out. He needs to be brought to the front of the line, and he needs to be forced to answer for this. Grow a pair, Tim Scott. If you're out there, grow a fucking pair of balls and speak out. Shit, maybe you agree with it. Even if you agree with it, come out and say, hey, I agree with getting rid of it. The program wasn't working and it wasn't efficient. Say something, goddammit. Like, just being silent. Silence says a lot more than if you would have came out with a bullshit statement. Because at least if you come out with some half-ass bullshit statement that you may not have fully wrote or fully agree with, at least, okay, at least he's trying to, he's trying to bullshit us. But being silent, I think that says a lot. That says a lot. Especially considering that you are the chair, you're the banking chair in the Senate. So you knew that this program was coming to an end because it works directly with the Commerce Department. This is all under the Commerce Department, which you are the chair of. So why haven't you said anything? maybe you're okay with the ending of it. And if that's the case, then you need to come out and say that too. And say why. And because I don't want to hear no more stories about no cotton to Congress and all this trying to placate like you somebody that cares about, no. You can't use that no more. You can't do that. So a couple of quotes came out of this, of course. Because Tim Scott has been working on this for years. And this one quote came out. Someone said, "They are watching this happen and they're doing nothing. That's cowardice. And it cuts especially deep when the people you once believed were your champions turn their backs in silence." That's what a Commerce Department employee said of Scott and other Republicans' silence on cuts to the program. Right? Now, so a spokesperson for Tim Scott said they were highlighting they were, instead of answering for why the cuts happened, they're highlighting his record of working with Trump to deliver life-changing results for minority communities around the nation. They pointed to Scott's effort under Trump's first term to secure permanent funding for historical black colleges and universities, which mentioned in terms of it creating opportunity zones under the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act and cutting taxes for single mothers. Like, that was what he mentioned as his rebuttal to why they're cutting the program. Right? The same shit he's repeating that he talked about. It's like the same stuff over and over. Although Scott and other Republican lawmakers have voiced their support of minority businesses via the MBDA's mission, one of the Commerce Department employees revealed their wish that the agency would change its name to avoid political attention. Within MBDA's gutting, recent efforts by Scott to improve access to economic tools for underserved communities and minority business owners have compromised the failure of the Senators Empowering Main Street in America Act, which sought to improve access to capital for small businesses, including minority and women-owned and rural small businesses, may have been a blow. But Scott said last month that he will continue pushing the legislation forward. So, well, that's what he said last month. But he's quiet as the minority business part got cut. So it will sound like to me that it's gonna be it might come back as a repackaged, but it won't be for minorities anymore. It'll go probably to whoever they want. Probably the minorities will be cut out of it, whatever. Other fallout from the current cuts include the inability for the MBDA to deliver core programs like the Capital Readiness Program, which offers assistance assessing capital and provides technical assistance services, as well as the shuttering of the national network of business centers and release of contractors. So, yeah, Tim Scott's a piece of shit. He's a piece of shit. Bottom line. Spent all that time kissing Trump's ass, licking his balls, his orange nutsack, just so Trump could say, "Screw you, Scott. You ain't looking good enough." And that's where we're at now.